Today I wanted to bring you guys to yet another new location that we haven't visited yet in the videos. Right behind me is a park called Collins Park, and right across the street from there is the beach, so maybe we'll make it over there later in the video. But I wanted to start over here surrounding the park by this little area where you see all these buildings behind me, because one thing I wanted to talk about real quick before we get into the rest of the video is for everybody who saw my video the other day showing like the more affordable areas of Miami, and you guys see like for a $500,000 house you're still living in a very sketchy location, which is basically true all over Miami these days. And somebody mentioned like, hey, can I still get a condo anywhere over there for like 250 grand? And the answer is actually yes, guys. So I wanted to clear that up real quick, because the thing is, even though Miami Beach is a very expensive place, there are still places that are more affordable. Like here, there's all these little condos for sale, like in this more fancy building that are 700-800 grand. And then you have ones like in this place over here that go for like 300 grand, or some of them like 400. I seen them down to 250K, you know, in this price range around here. But the big elephant in the room to address, especially for first-time home buyers, you have to make a sacrifice, guys. If you want a single-family home, you're either gonna have to pony up the dough or live in a less than desirable location. But if you don't mind buying a condo, you can get something way more affordable in a much better location, a safer location, a more convenient location. So it all comes down to priorities. Another thing you gotta remember when you're buying your first property is that it's probably not gonna be forever, guys. Like almost zero chance that you're gonna stay living in this place forever. So don't get too hung up on, oh, it's a small condo, you know, I don't wanna live in a small condo, I want a house. Like, okay, fair enough, but if it's your first property and it's cheaper than renting something similar in your area, it's probably still better to buy something like that, you know? So now that we kind of started off with our very first lesson when it comes to first-time home buyers, you know, really getting your priorities straight when it comes to what you want for your first place, we have to talk about literally the most important thing when it comes to getting ready to buy your first place. And that is getting your financial house in order, guys. Because this is basically the easiest thing that anybody can do if you want to buy your first home, okay? You cannot buy if you don't have enough money saved up. You cannot buy if you don't have a good credit score. And this is something that I talk about all the time here on the channel. That's very simple and easy to do, yet so many people just don't do it, and they only think about it when it's basically too late, when they're already thinking, oh, I want to buy something, but now, you know, my credit's only 580 and I only have, you know, $200 in the bank. I mean, you're not going to be able to buy. That's the reality, guys. So the first real tip for you is to get your financial house in order. Make sure your credit score is at least a 650 or above. Preferably well over 700 is going to be much better for you, because that's going to greatly reduce the amount you're going to be paying in interest. And you know, keep saving money, guys. I keep telling everybody this on the channel over and over again. You know, we need money for everything, and it's no exception when it comes to buying real estate. With this recession here and an uncertainty of how bad the economy is going to get, having extra money saved up is not ever going to be a bad thing. So remember that as well. And here's something to think about when it comes to money. Not only is buying a home very expensive, but it also comes with a lot of extra costs that people might not think about, especially if this is your first time buying, okay? Now, when you go to buy your first property, you're gonna pay for a lot of different things. You're gonna pay for a home inspection. You're gonna pay for an appraisal. You might pay for your lender to pull your credit. You're gonna have closing costs, which are additional expenses that you're gonna have when you actually go to sign your mortgage documents and close on your property. So besides the down payment, you're gonna need a lot of additional money to save up in order to buy your first place. And that's why saving as much as possible, as fast as possible, is crucial. But now, assuming you have your financial house in order, what is the next thing you need to do? Well, kind of goes back to my first point that I was bringing up in the beginning of this video, which is really getting all of your priorities straight when it comes to what you want in your first place. And the one thing I want to stress to you is you really should not get hung up on finding the perfect place, because there's really no such thing, guys. There's always going to be some kind of flaw with any place you decide to pick. So don't get hung up on it being your forever home or your dream home or this or that has to be perfect. But at the same time, you don't want to sacrifice on too many things on your wish list that you're going to regret later and have buyer's remorse. So really the way to have the best balance with this is you have to check a couple things off the box. Is this within my price range? That's the biggest one. You know, automatically you should not even be looking at places that are not in your price range. And we'll get to a little bit later in this video of how do you know if it's in your price range or not. But you should be looking at things more like, is the space big enough? Is it in the right location? How far away am I from work? What's the internet speed like here, especially for younger buyers? This is an important one. Does it have parking for my car? If you are looking in a condo, is the building healthy? Is it in a healthy financial situation? You know, how much is the HOA payment going to be in additional to your monthly mortgage payment? So really you should be making a wish list of things that you want to have in a property, and then you should make a separate list of things that you need to have in the property. Basically a list of non-negotiables. And my advice, guys, would be to not even look at properties that don't check off the bare minimum of your non-negotiables, because then that means you're being desperate and you're jumping the gun and you're going to regret your purchase essentially. So only be looking at properties that check off all of the must-have boxes and of course have as many of the wish list items as possible. Now going back to figuring out how much you can afford when it comes to your purchase, this is where you need to get pre-approved for a mortgage, so that way you know how much more or less you can spend. And basically how this works is you'll go to your bank, you'll go to a mortgage broker who can approve you for a mortgage. They'll run your credit, they'll look at your tax returns, they'll look at your pay stubs and your income, different things like that to determine how much property you can afford. Now, one thing that a lot of people like to do as a smart financial tip is to definitely look at properties that are well below what you're pre-approved for, because they're going to pre-approve you for the maximum that you can afford. But the problem is, like we've been talking about in previous videos, a lot of people that bought over the last couple years even paid over asking price for properties, guys. They basically got in way over their heads with what they bought, and a lot of people now are having buyer's remorse because of this. And you don't want that to be you, especially for your first purchase. It's going to put a bad taste in your mouth forever when it comes to real estate. But besides the mortgage payment on the property, you also have to look at the additional expenses that you're going to incur, because when you're renting, you just pay your rent, you pay your electric bill, your internet bill, and that's probably it. You know, but when you own your property, your mortgage payment is like your rent. You're still going to have all those additional utilities that you have when you're renting, but now you have additional expenses that you didn't have when you're renting. You're going to have property taxes. You're going to have homeowners insurance. You're going to have repair costs. If you buy a house, you're going to have additional utilities paying for things like water and sewer and trash removal, different things like that you probably never thought about that you would have to pay, and that can add up quite a bit. Like for example, I used to own a duplex in West Palm Beach, guys, and the water bill every month there was like $300 a month. Now given it was a duplex and you had two large families living there using up quite a bit of water, but that's a large extra expense. The trees they have in this park are super cool. They're like some kind of imported tree from Africa. I don't really know what these are called, but don't think they're native to Florida. And then, like I was telling you guys before, if you're going to buy a condo, like something around here where we're walking around, you got to budget in your HOA fees as well. And that's a big thing that a lot of people don't consider. Even mortgage brokers and lenders don't consider this a lot of times. And that is, when you're going to buy your first property, and they give you a pre-approval, let's say for $300,000, right? Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to buy a condo for $300,000. That's for a house, guys, because with a condo, you have HOA fees, and your budget is not taking into consideration that HOA fee. So if you're looking at a condo that has a $500 a month HOA fee, that's going to significantly reduce your actual amount that you're able to purchase. So that's going to take your $300K probably down to like 230K or 240K, something like that, to accommodate for that extra $500 a month in maintenance fees. So that's another thing to think about. There are a lot of additional expenses that you need to be looking at when you're going to be buying your first place. And not all of them can be anticipated, but if you're at least planning on having some surprise expenses come up that you were not anticipating and having a little room in your monthly budget for that, that's going to go light years for you when it comes to being prepared. Because one problem that people are having right now that bought in the last couple years is that they spent so much on just getting into the house that now they're broke, okay? They had to put down, you know, a big down payment, or they had to pay over asking price just to get into the property, which increases their monthly payment even though they have a low mortgage payment. Things like this that really are causing people financial pain right now, and that you don't want that to be you. Now, another thing that you should be looking up or trying to figure out is, depending on where you're going to buy, find out if there's any type of first-time home buyer programs in your area. Because depending on where you live, they might have them, they might not, and also the incentives will be different depending on where you are as well. So, for example, here in Miami Beach, if you want to buy your first place and you don't have a lot of money saved up, well, they will actually help you with a down payment program. And basically how this works is it goes by income on how much you might be eligible for when it comes to down payment assistance, but it comes with some catches, guys, that you need to be aware of. And I can't speak for everywhere, but here in Miami Beach, for example, say they give you 30 grand in order to help with the purchase of your first place. Great, it's a free 30 grand, right? The catch is you cannot rent the property or sell the property within the first 15 years that you live there. Like I said in the beginning, a lot of people that buy their first property is not going to be their forever property. There's a high probability you're probably going to move out within the next 5 to 7 years. And if that happens and you took advantage of one of these first-time home buyer programs, well, now you could be on the hook for paying back this money. So that's how it works here. They'll give you the money for free, and basically, if you hold the property long enough, if you actually hold on to it for 15 years or longer, then it's basically a loan that was forgiven. So they give you the loan, it's like a $30,000 loan, and it stops being a loan, it ends up being a gift after 15 years. But 15 years is a long time, guys, to hold on to any property, and most people don't. So consider those things before taking advantage of a first-time home buyer program. And then, of course, if you're like a government worker or a teacher, somebody like that, you could also have, you know, specific deals available to you through like your union, things like this. So make sure you look into all these things, because you might be leaving a lot of free money on the table if you don't. Now, once you've done all of those things, the next thing you really need to do is find a real estate agent that you can trust. And really, the way I always recommend people doing this is either getting a referral from someone you know, like me, for example. I have a link in the description below. I can set you guys up with a real estate agent. Or say you know somebody who recently bought something, they had a good experience with their real estate agent, get the referral from them. You know, or if you don't know anyone or you don't want to use my link, then the next best thing that you guys can always do is walk into your local real estate office, guys. Talk to a few different agents and see who you like, see who you feel like you trust, and go from there. Because that's how I used to get all of my clients back in the day. I used to sit in the real estate office, people would walk in, and we would talk and get clients like that. It works out well for both parties, actually, because, you know, it's one thing to get a call from somebody over the phone, you don't really know who they are or anything. But when you meet your clients in person as the real estate agent, you build mutual trust. So that's something that's really important, because you're going to be working alongside this person and, you know, making a huge purchase with them. So you need to make sure that you believe what they're telling you. Because some of these things that you guys write me in the comments that real estate agents are telling you guys right now is total insanity, guys. They just are looking for the money. They could care less about you. So you really gotta look out for stuff like that. That's the W Hotel over here. Glitzy, ritzy. Now here's something super fascinating that's happening right now in the economy, and that is that all the stock market investors are basically praying for a recession, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Like, why would they want a recession? In a recession, you know, the stock market drops, right? Well, yeah, but here's the problem with this. The reason why these stock market investors want the recession to come is because when that happens, then the Fed will officially pivot and start lowering interest rates. And one thing that I find fascinating right now is, since our government won't come out and admit that we're already in a recession right now, and they're saying everything looks good, employment's still very strong, and you know, inflation's starting to come down, different things like that, this isn't a recession. Well, guess what that does? It also means that the Fed is far less likely to start lowering interest rates anytime soon. And high interest rates, you guys can see the impact that this has had so far on the stock market and on the real estate market. And all this is going to do is prolong the pain. You know, some people think that the Fed's going to pivot this year and that, you know, they're going to reverse their policy and, you know, they're going to start bringing interest rates back down some point later this year. But they've said time and time again that that is not going to happen. We are going to keep rates high throughout the year, and that's how it's going to be. And if that happens, especially as the economy is supposedly doing like better than expected, then you can pretty much get the prices of everything are going to continue to fall, with homes and stocks and everything like that. And that's why the stock market investors are basically praying for a recession right now, because that will basically guarantee that the Fed will go ahead and reverse their policy, start lowering rates. Now here's something interesting that I've been wanting to kind of ask you guys about and see what your thoughts are on this in the comments. And I'm sure a lot of you by now have probably heard of this new AI program, ChatGPT. It's all the rage all over the internet these days. There was an article out today talking about how they're predicting that by the time 2025 rolls around, that's only 2 years from now, that 90% of the content on the internet will be AI generated. AI meaning artificial intelligence, like this ChatGPT program. The reason I want to bring this up is because you guys are watching this video right now, so obviously you are avid internet users and probably consume a lot of content online, just like most of us do now. And as you guys can see, I'm a human walking around in the human world, not the metaverse, and I'm filming a human video for you guys. So my question to you, does this interest you? Are you guys going to be interested in watching content that's generated by an AI that has no personality or, you know, no real human depth to it? Does that sound interesting for you? Now, to me, as a fellow human who also enjoys watching YouTube videos, I don't really see myself ever watching videos that are made from AI, guys. Now, I see YouTube channels all the time where they're basically like faceless YouTube channels where there's nobody in the video. It's just a bunch of stock B-roll videos and somebody doing a voiceover. Do you guys watch videos like that? Does stuff like that interest you? That's what I want to know, because they're saying that that's going to be the future. So I'm curious to know if you'd rather see a real person, or you guys don't care. You want to just get the information. Doesn't matter if it's AI generated. Let me know. Curious to know your thoughts. The next thing I just have to mention is Tesla recently announced that they're going to be bringing on major price cuts to some of their cars, and a bunch of people who recently purchased Teslas over the last few months are basically furious over this. Right now, Tesla is set to knock about 14% off of its Model 3 sedan, and they're talking about knocking down the Model Y crossover 20% off, guys. And if you're somebody who recently paid full price for this thing, you're pissed. And rightfully so, right? And part of the reason this is happening is because Tesla has been sinking just like many other stocks last year. They lost like 62% of their value over 2022, which is not as bad as companies like Redfin or Opendoor, but that's still pretty bad, especially for a car company. And right now they're in this position where they need to sell these cars. And with this recession here, how many people can afford a $70,000 Tesla? And really the reason I'm bringing this up is because you guys can now see the full picture of just how much interest rates are impacting everything when it comes to this recession, when it comes to businesses, financial viability, different things like that. And this affects everybody, guys. It affects first-time home buyers. It affects business owners. It affects people that have debt on different things. So this affects everybody in so many different ways. And it's to the point where even Elon Musk himself is coming out and saying the Fed needs to pivot, because, you know, their businesses are getting destroyed. He's looking at Tesla, looking at Twitter. Everything is down right now. And, you know, not even billionaires are immune to the Fed rate hikes, which is kind of insane when you think about it. Now, I know we went a little bit off topic from the whole first-time home buyer thing, but the reason I do that, just so anybody who's made it this far in the video, if in case you want to know, is because to me, all these things are connected, guys. Doesn't matter if you're a real estate investor, first-time home buyer, or just a stock market investor, anybody like that. All these things are broad economic stories and issues, and it affects all of our daily lives. And I feel like there's always something that can be learned from all these little nuggets. So keep that in mind sometimes when I go totally off of what we were talking about before, because I'm bringing it up because I think somehow it will benefit you. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. If you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.